Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, rock throwing season is here. And also today we'll be debating Adam Smith on the war in Iran. But before we get to any of that, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
I woke up this morning, my alarm let out a warning, and I was worried I'd never make it on time. But then I rolled over and grabbed my cell phone. And I should not check social media first thing in the morning. I really shouldn't, because sometimes it just sends me over the edge. Somebody had sent me a link to a Seattle Times article. I am not checking the Seattle Times on a regular basis at all. This one here. Washington voters to see ballot initiative aimed at trans girls in sports. Already I know where this is going. But before we do that, I need to tell you something. If you are still subscribing to the Seattle Times, you are the problem. Without subscribers, they cannot write the garbage they've been writing. And so far this week, I have five articles that it's not that they're biased and they're leaning left. It's not that they're misleading. They are factually false or intentionally downplaying something. And I will give you those examples right now. This article here by Sophia Sostrin about the ballot initiative to keep boys out of girls' sports. My daughter last night, she came home and she said, "Dad, I need your help with my homework." And that's rare. Usually she asks my wife for help with her homework. And she said, "Dad, I'm doing a persuasive argument and I need your help with it." I go, "Great. I love to argue. What are we arguing? I will help you with all things that you need." And she says, "I'm arguing to protect girls' sports. I want to keep transgender people out of girls' sports." And I said, "What a noble cause. Let's work on this together. First thing you got to work on, there's not transgender people. You want to keep boys out of girls' sports." And she said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "No, you don't understand, sweetie. The second you start using the verbiage, you are already giving up ground in your argument." That's to begin with. And we worked on this last night, and I couldn't believe how many of these stories I had off the top of my head. She had it very well organized. How does it affect them from a health perspective? How does it affect them from a competition perspective? How does it affect them from a legal perspective? I was very impressed with the work my daughter had done beforehand. She came to me for the examples, and I was more than happy to provide them. And as I'm providing them, I realized I'm providing her with examples of kids who are her age. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So when I see this article from the Seattle Times from Sophia Sostrin, Seattle Times staff reporter, I said, "Gee, I wonder who this person is. It's not a name we usually talk about here on the show." So I found her on LinkedIn. Are you ready for who they had write this? Intern at the Seattle Times. Third-year student at the University of Washington, studying journalism and international studies. Beat writer for The Daily. Wow. So you got the kid from the college newspaper to come write for the Seattle Times. You guys must really be having trouble. Or is this one of the interns you got who's paid for by the legislature so you can write the articles that the Democrats want you to write, which I think is more likely? The amount of nonsense in this thing. Oh, and I noticed they changed the headline from what it was originally. Because originally, this thing had a much edgier headline to try and get you to read this sucker. Ready? A state ballot initiative would require sex verification for girls' sports, raising concerns from pediatricians about cost, privacy, and access to care. They got ratioed so hard for the title because it's not true. It's completely false. The initiative to keep boys out of girls' sports does not require a sex verification. Here's what it does do. it makes sure that boys stays out of girls' sports. But this is a narrative that the left is running with, and a lot of people are believing it. Let me say this one more time just so everybody's clear. Any kid who wants to compete in sports, you need a physical before competing in sports. And kids usually do it sometime in late August, early September before they go back to school because you need that physical. There's nobody, not the school nurse is not saying, all right, drop your drawers. Let's see if you're a boy or girl. Let's just check that out right here. We're going to do this in nurse off. The coach is not saying drop your pants. And by the way, if your coach or your nurse is doing that stuff, you got other problems. You got to talk to your parents and the principal right away. Immediately, this headline was changed to what I just read, which is Washington voters to see ballot initiative aimed at trans girls in sports. So you guys got hit so hard with how false you were about your reporting, you had to change your headline. Here's something else. What do you always know whenever there's a big signing in any sport? In baseball, in football, in basketball, in anything? All right, we're going to sign Juan Soto for $750 million to the New York Mets, pending a physical, pending a physical, pending a physical. Yes, they do it in professional sports too. But unfortunately, that's only the tip of the iceberg with this nonsense. I'm going to read from the article. For most Washington public school students, a sports physical is a brief ritual, a stethoscope pressed to the chest, a few questions about injuries, a vision test, and a physician's signature clearing them for their first practice. Exactly right. Exactly right. We're good there. Oh, Kevin's having flashbacks. You didn't like when they said, all right, turn and cough kind of thing? Yeah, you're remembering all that.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than that, especially at that age, no matter, even if it is a doctor, male or female.
Yeah.
You know it gets very...
A little bit more hands-on. But this is written by a girl. She hasn't done that. She doesn't have that. I assume girls have other things they do in there, right? With us, it's the, all right, turn and cough.
Drop them.
Right, drop them and...
turn and cough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's a joke I usually make, but I can't make it here. Anyway, moving on. A recently certified state initiative could turn that routine screaming into something far more invasive and subjective. False. Completely false. I dare Sophia Sostrin to show me the language in the ballot initiative where it actually says this. Initiative IL 26638, expected to appear statewide on the November ballot, would require students who want to compete in girls' sports to provide documentation from a healthcare provider to verify their biological sex. Okay, so your driver's license verifies your biological sex. Your passport verifies your biological sex. Guess what your physical says at the top of it? Here's the student's name, male, female, and then your birth date, and then all the other information about you. So you're now trying to spin this into something it's not. They have an entire article which is filled with so many falsehoods, I don't even know where to start taking the college journalist paper apart. Ah, yes, the UW Daily, one of the most reliable sources. So that's the big lie, number one, a full article so ridden with mistakes they had to change the headline. Okay, number two. This is a story we did yesterday. So you remember yesterday we talked about Raz Simone? He's the warlord of the Autonomous Zone. And we found out last week that he was convicted, or excuse me, I shouldn't say convicted. It was a civil case. There was a verdict in a civil case that for trafficking women, for 4 women, he has to pay them $2.1 million in a criminal profiteering case. And he did pretty awful stuff to them. Now, what are the headlines? What should they be? Warlord of the Autonomous Zone, Raz Simone, convicted of criminal profiteering. Jury awards $2.1 million to victims. That's what you write. And by the way, that's what you write when you're going for clickbait, right? That's what you want. You want the clickbait. Give me the clickbait. The warlord of the Autonomous Zone? That sounds awesome. In fact, I still have people from New York. You know, they still ask me this. When they still ask about the Autonomous Zone, they go, is that Autonomous Zone still a thing? I'm like, no. It's gone, but the crime still sucks. Oh, wasn't there a warlord or something like that? Is he still around? So here's the first thing. Does anybody know who Roz Simone is without the title warlord in front of him? I know he has a rap career, but I assume the people who read the Seattle Times don't know anything about failing rappers. That's number one. Okay, so you have a terrible headline. Fine, Seattle Times is known for it. Where do they even mention him being the warlord of the autonomous zone? Let's go here. 1, 2, 3. I'm counting paragraphs. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Oh, here we go. He was a figure in the unrest. Oh, he was just a figure in the protests of 2020. Oh, I see. We're just going to bury that. We don't want to talk about the fact that he was the warlord of the autonomous zone, that he was walking around beating the you-know-what out of people at night. The fact that this guy was handing out AR-15s out of the trunk of a Tesla to anybody who would stand a post in the autonomous zone. Are you kidding me with this? Here, let me read exactly what it says. Simone is a Seattle musician and was a prominent figure in the Capitol Hill organized protest known as CHOP during the racial protest in summer of 2020. Oh, he's just a community organizer. Oh, he's just a nice leader. It's because the Seattle Times downplayed the autonomous zone. It's because the Seattle Times downplayed all the violence. It's because the Seattle Times called me a liar about what I was reporting from the autonomous zone. And since then, it's been, look at the text messages. Oh, look at the lawsuits, because they realized they were on the wrong side of this. So they can't go back and say he was the warlord of the autonomous zone, because then you're going to say, where was all your previous reporting on the warlord of the autonomous zone? That sounds like kind of a big deal. But he's just a Seattle musician. Never mind the fact that he got a grant for $83,000 from the city of Seattle to build a rap studio, which, by the way, is one of the places where he may have been trafficking these women and doing the horrible things to these women. They don't want to actually call him out for any of that. Then, my favorite one, by Naomi Ishisaka. Naomi Ishisaka is the dumbest journalist I have ever read anything from in my life, and that is a really, really high bar. Or low bar. Low bar, high bar. Naomi Ishisaka writes the worst columns I have ever read, and without fail is always wrong. You're getting ready to say something. I see you in there. He's putting in the headphones. I'm just
saying there's a lot of trash journalism out there. That's a bold statement.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not counting the clickbaity stuff. She says she's a journalist. She writes for a reputable, I should say, in theory, newspaper. Okay, she's writing for the Seattle Times. Anytime she writes, I'm convinced the Seattle Times just keeps her because they know that people like me will bash her and hope they're going to get clicks off it because it is so terrible. She's factually wrong. Here's the headline. Public grocery stores could be an oasis in Seattle's food desert. So she's advocating for government-funded grocery stores, which, by the way, are closing, if they haven't closed already, all over the country. And now that Mamdani is trying to open these things, they're going to cost $10 million than the $60 million he thought they were going to do, and now he's not sure he can afford them. Here's what Naomi Ishisaka writes. I feel bad doing this. It's like beating up a special needs kid or something. When it comes to putting food on our tables, it often feels like we are now more than ever at the mercy of giant grocery conglomerates and corporate consolidation. In the Seattle area, just two companies, Kroger and Albertsons, control Fred Meyer, QFC, Safeway, and Albertsons. In 2022, the year the grocery behemoths announced a proposed merger to consolidate even further, about 53% of groceries were purchased from Kroger and Albertsons stores. The merger was blocked in 2024 after a contentious legal battle, but continued store closures in the region, such as Fred Meyer's in Redmond and Lake City, have rocked communities that rely on supermarkets for not just groceries, but their pharmacy and prescription needs as well. Stop. Time out. Wouldn't this be a good place to talk about why the Fred Meyers closed for a second? Because at the time, I seem to remember a lot of talk about the crime and the theft and the issues the Fred Meyers were dealing with, which is why they closed those locations but kept other ones open. Nope. These closures hit older adults, people with disabilities, and lower income people the hardest. Okay, first of all, guys, that's not the cheapest place to get groceries. None of those places are. I shop at Safeway all the time. I know it's not the cheapest place to get groceries, but I go there because it's convenient. Let's just start with that. They have sparked a long overdue broader conversation about our dependency on profit-driven corporations to fulfill basic human need for fresh, affordable food. Okay, lady, number one, you can get it online. Number two, do you see any residential grocers around here? I know of one. I know of one near my house. That's it. And they ain't cheap either. I know of one. So where are all these mom and pop grocery stores we're talking about? Two, these evil profit-driven companies. Do you know what the margins are on groceries? 1%. 1%. Less than 1%, you might even say. We've had them on the show before to talk about this and what the terrible policies are doing to them and how they can't operate here anymore. And when you advocate to raise the minimum wage, which you've done, Naomi Ishisaka, you moron, it has actually driven those costs up. One idea that has begun to gain some traction is the idea of a public grocery stores. I know that for many, the idea of a public grocery stores conjures up a picture of a Soviet-style facility with long lines and poor stock. Yes, fact check true. First thing you've said that's accurate. But the U.S. has already been in the public grocery store business for over 150 years. They are all closing. Did you miss that? Did you miss that part? Including the one you guys held up as the champion of the public grocery stores, the one in Kansas City that closed because they couldn't keep food on the shelves and because the stuff that was there was spoiling and rotten. This is an agenda-driven rag of an outlet. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics, grocery prices are 30% higher than before the pandemic. One 2024 Washington State survey, which oversampled lower-income consumers, found that 70% reported restricting the quantity and quality of food they ate due to cost concerns. What's driving up the costs here in Washington? Because now would be a great place to mention it. How about, the minimum wage increases? How about the fact that you guys advocate for more taxes on gas and everything here that's required to make food relies on gasoline? Your idiot advocacy did this. Then she talks about Zoran Mamdani and Katie Wilson and what brilliant ideas these are. Yes, let's go with the ideas of Katie Wilson and Zoran Mamdani after just mentioning Soviet-era stuff. The Seattle Times is garbage. Absolute garbage. If you are funding the Seattle Times, you are part of the problem. Want me to prove this? They're not even good on the international stuff when they steal stuff from other people. They did the op-ed we spoke about the other day where they want Congress to do its duty and check Trump's war powers and stop the war in Iran. They don't care about the over 1,000 Americans killed by the regime. Not at all. So I did a little looking. I looked up Gaddafi from Libya on the Seattle Times. I found one local article written about what happened in Libya. And it wasn't by the editorial board. You ready for this one? I'm not talking about the stuff they stole from the New York Times and the Washington Post or anything. One local article. New opera turns Libya's Gaddafi into a superstar. That is the local reporting from the Seattle Times from Jill Lawless. Okay, bravo. Wonderful job, guys. That is the Seattle Times. If you are still subscribing to them, if you are still giving them your money, if you are advertising with them in any way, shape, or form, I want to remind you, these are the guys who endorsed every single Democrat that is in office, with the exception of the socialists and some of them too. If you are funding the Seattle Times, you are part of the problem. Cancel your subscriptions today because these guys do not deserve your money. There are better outlets. You can get your news from so many other sources. And to our seniors that are out there, if you want something delivered to your house, get the Wall Street Journal. At least they are basically the most unbiased news source that's out there compared to the other mainstream media outlets. Cancel your subscription to the Seattle Times today. They do not deserve your money because they have done everything possible to misinform you, to misrepresent you, and to absolutely screw you. Need I remind you about their president, Alan Fisco, who went to Olympia to advocate for taxes on tech companies, which is going to make your life more expensive, to pay for their failing outlet?
I'm Alan Fisco, President and CEO of the Seattle Times Company. As we all know, the state of the media organizations across the state is in a significant state of decline. Since 2004, we've lost a third of our newspapers across the state. Just yesterday, the Washington Post announced 500 layoffs, 300 of which came from their newsrooms. Washington State is not immune from this problem. We have to do everything we can to protect our journalism jobs that remain and provide incentives to grow the number of journalists in our state, and Senate Bill 5400 will do just that. The tweaks that were made will expand the tent and widen the tent for those who will qualify. The bill will not impact general funds negatively. The modest surcharge in some tech companies that we talked about would be a drop in the bucket compared to the billions that they've made, many of which from our news content that they've used without any compensation. Google made $124 billion last year. $6 million represents 0.0048% of their profits. If you use that same number for someone who's making $70,000, it comes out to be $3.36. Hardly a big lift for the tech platforms. Many news organizations would benefit from the package of this bill, from the passage, including the Seattle Times. One benefit is save jobs, but the real winners are Washington residents. And informed citizenry is the foundation of our democracy, and that's what we try to do every single day. This will protect jobs. We strongly support Senate Bill 5400 and hope that you advance it out of committee for give us a chance to sustain and grow our vital community service missions.
This will not protect jobs. The more and more you tax the tech companies, the more and more of them will leave town. And then you know what you're going to have less of? Less readers. You're also going to have less grocery stores. You're going to have fewer, can't even speak English today. It's like I write for the Seattle Times. Fewer grocery stores because the grocers rely on the people who are working for the tech companies. And when the tech companies leave, like Starbucks is leaving, like Amazon is leaving, you're going to have less people to read your terrible rag of a newspaper. And you're going to have less people for those grocery stores that Naomi Ishisaka wants so bad. The Seattle Times is making your life worse. They do not deserve your money at all. And speaking of socialists and communists and Soviet-era people who are making your life worse, Seattle's mayor, Katie Wilson, is dodging questions from our friend Jonathan Cho, but not just him, some of our TV reporter friends as well. I'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Speaking of pillow made of concrete, some concrete's being thrown on people in our area. Where is it coming from? Well, guess what? Overpasses on Rainier Avenue. Is it a little early for rock throwing season? Rock throwing season, to my recollection, is usually like May-ish through about October-ish, when the weather's nice and there's a lot more people living in that encampment. But yeah, once again, we've got another incident of rock throwing season around here. Joy, awesome, fantastic, and in the same exact place. Hey, you want to stop having these problems? Get that homeless encampment that's on Rainier Avenue and I-90 out of there, and guess what? You may not have these problems anymore. I know, I live right over there. It's a crazy, crazy idea. But don't worry, my friends. Katie Wilson is on the job. Katie Wilson has a plan. She's pushing legislation to fast-track 1,000 homeless shelter units. That is not the problem. The problem is you don't get these people treatment. The problem is you don't get these people in jail who belong in jail. The problem is you don't get these people to rehab. That's the problem with the homeless situation. We all know it. Why is she pushing this? Because somebody told her, oh, some people will make a lot of money off this. Let's go forward with the warehousing people, shoving people in these little shacks. And by the way, as our friends Jonathan Cho and Andrew Suarez and many others, like at the Discovery Institute, have revealed, is that what's happening is you have somebody who has one of these apartments and also has one of the tiny homes and also has a tent and also has this because they got their place of business and they got the place that they live, and people are working the system. We had Jonathan Cho and Andrea Suarez in here last week literally to talk about this. So Katie Wilson is giving her little remarks about this. And our friend Jonathan Cho shows up to ask her a few questions. And we are back to this again, where Katie Wilson's people say Jonathan Cho is not a journalist. Give a listen.
Our rates of unsheltered homelessness are off the charts, even in comparison with our peer cities. That's why today I'm announcing that I have transmitted 3 pieces of legislation to our City Council that will allow us to quickly open new shelters with supportive services across the city.
Well, this is rare for me, but I got beat. Mayor Wilson quickly snuck out in the back, and I didn't even notice.
Sure. I'm just wondering what happened to the mayor. Where'd she go?
She had to go. She is so busy. She's the mayor.
Well, how come she didn't take any reporter questions?
It was never the plan. She was announcing her announcement, and we'll send her the rest of the details very shortly.
Sage, you said Mayor Wilson is going to continue to sweep encampments at the same rate as Mayor Harrell.
I didn't say that.
Well, the Times quoted you. Did they misquote you?
I didn't say. Jonathan, I'm not doing it on the record with you, Jonathan.
I don't understand. You answered all of the questions. Why can't you answer mine?
Because you're not a member of the media, Jonathan.
Why am I not a member of the media? Why would you say that, Sage? Do you want me to show you my press credential from Newsmax, the national cable news network, Turning Point USA Frontlines?
And we're happy to have you here, and happy you were great. And
I didn't get a question because Mayor Wilson took off.
Pretty much.
Okay. So Sage Wilson, just so you know, here's their MO, and Bruce Harrell did this too. This is nothing new. Sage Wilson is Seattle Mayor Wilson's press secretary. I don't know if they're related or not. Sage Wilson has not responded to a single one of my questions since Katie Wilson took office. That's 3 months. Not a single one. Oh, and this was their press person beforehand, and they didn't respond to any questions during the campaign either. Now, it'd be one thing, me and Jonathan Cho. It's wrong, but we're kind of used to that. I saw the TV outlets talking about this too, that she's not taking any questions, and she's running out of the room, and she's running away. I think what they're worried about is she's not bright enough to answer the questions. Anytime she's actually gotten questions, we get content out of it. We get to make fun of it. I think what they're doing is they're keeping her hidden and they're not going to answer any questions. It's like Joe Biden. And I couldn't help but notice yesterday, she's standing in front of this fake house that's being built in a warehouse. The vibes were very similar to Joe Biden and his fake Oval Office set that he had in the basement of the White House. I even put the pictures up side by side on my social media and wrote same energy. Who's actually running Seattle if it's not Katie Wilson? Which leads to my next question. Who's going to be running the Department of Homeland Security? Because President Trump has gotten rid of Kristi Noem, and when we come back, we'll tell you exactly who he replaced her with and what we're going to do going forward, and why is she being shown the door? We'll tell you all about it next. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Earlier today, we found out that President Trump has fired, reassigned, asked to resign, asked to move on Kristi Noem, the former South Dakota Congresswoman and governor, who was in charge of the Department of Homeland Security. He announced on Truth Social that he's going to be nominating Senator Markwayne Mullin. Now, this is an interesting move here, nominating a senator to do this. I got no problem with Senator Markwayne Mullin. My issue is we got a little bit of a vote issue. Now, okay, it's a pretty solid red district. You assume you're going to get another senator, but why would you even chance that hitting into the midterms? Here's something else, by the way. If the left says they like Tom Homan so much, which is what they've been saying ever since all the insanity in Minnesota, just put Tom Homan in charge. He's already doing the border czar stuff. I've had a real hard time understanding the difference between border czar and the Department of Homeland Security secretary. So why not just put Tom Homan in charge? But okay. I did like how Senator Markwayne addressed the media when he got the news.
But what was your first reaction to just the news that you were nominated for this position, just amidst everything that's happening?
Humbling, because I had to call my dad, and because it happened quick, right? I had to call my wife and call my dad both. And it's just, pretty humbling when you start thinking about it. A little kid from Westville, Oklahoma, gets to serve in the president's cabinet. That's pretty neat.
That's really nice. I like that. Wholesome content is wholesome, right? That kind of stuff I really, really like. So he's going to be in charge of this. Now, the Department of Homeland Security sent out an email of all the accomplishments under Kristi Noem, because this isn't the usual Donald Trump firing with get out the door, don't let you hit the butt, hit the door, let the door hit you on the butt in the way out. My God, I haven't had enough water today. What is this? They actually released a press release, which is pages and pages and pages and pages long of what they did, because I would argue that the border is this administration's greatest accomplishment. So here's an example. Undersecretary Noem, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, recorded its lowest border crossing totals in agency history during the past year due to the end of catch and release, consistent use of detention removal authorities, and a message that the borders are closed. Remember just the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden going, don't come. Total U.S. Border Patrol apprehensions along the southwest border in the administration's first year, 90,084, were lower than any single average month under the Biden administration, which was 155,485. Daily encounters declined by 95%. The amount of drug seizures have gone through the roof, keeping this stuff off the streets. I mean, it went on and on. More than 3 million illegal aliens out of the country, including an estimated 2.2 million self-deportations. ICE has been instrumental in preventing terror threats, with over 1,538 known or suspected terrorists being arrested and 1,534 being removed. I mean, this is all good news. So, we didn't like her tactics. Some people didn't like her. But what do you think? Do you think she deserved to get the boot, or you think she was just a sacrificial lamb because the left was going bonkers crazy about her? They're calling her the Ice Queen, the Ice Princess, and also dogs everywhere were petrified. But what do you think? Do you think this was the right move or the wrong move? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, for me, cynical Ari Hoffman, I was wondering if this was being done because they can't get the Department of Homeland Security funded. So the House passed the funding bill to reopen the government and fund the Department of Homeland Security. And even after she was fired, Senate Democrats still blocked Republicans' attempt to reopen the government. So I got to ask at this point, what more do you guys want? And this is what happens when you give in to the left. They want more, and they want more, and they want more, and they want more. So they still didn't vote to reopen the government, which shows they don't want Department of Homeland Security to exist. They've said it out loud. It's not Chuck Schumer making the decisions over there. It's Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC. And mind you, we've got our own issues with this stuff back home. Here in Washington, the bill banning masks for law enforcement has now been passed by the House and the Senate and is going to Bob Ferguson's desk. Now, this is virtue signaling about banning masks for ICE agents, but the truth is Washington state law can't do anything about ICE agents. So who is this going to affect? Police officers, local sheriffs. That's who it's going to affect in this state. What they've realized is that the defunding movement wasn't popular, so now they're trying to find other ways to do it. And if they can get enough people not to want to be police officers anymore, this could help. But also think back to the summer of love, when they were coming after these police officers, when they were going to their homes, that there are social media accounts locally that are dedicated to doxing these police officers and giving out their family addresses. I want you to think about that for a second. That's why they're pushing forward with this. And Bob Ferguson will sign it. The guy who says, oh, he's so pro-police. Give me a break. This is another anti-cop move by the Democrat legislature. Yet another one, which is completely virtue signaling, but it affects our local officers. And this is going to affect local hiring. So Bob Ferguson, who said he was putting aside $100 million, so that way we could hire all these police officers and has yet to hire a single one. Where'd all the money go? This is one more thing that's going to make it harder to hire police officers here. And meanwhile, while this is going on, our attorney general was voted sweeping powers to hide who his agents are when they're doing unconstitutional investigations. If Democrats didn't have double standards, they would have no standards at all. Like this story, where Antifa is now arming up. Oh, wait, that's not Antifa. It's Tran-Tifa arming up. That's right, my friends. When we come back, we'll tell you this latest insane story about these trans activists who are now training to go to war. Is it with you? Because we haven't had any issues with the trans shootings recently. This is kind of scary. Give you all details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I like that the left says they don't want people who are red flags having firearms. Okay, a lot of Americans would agree with that. And they always list mental health, but here they don't seem to have a problem with this. This from our friend Katie Daviscourt over at the Post Millennial. Seattle Antifa extremist Alex Randall has shared videos and images of firearms training being conducted for transgender member of his new leftist group, Moto Hooligans. Randall, also known as Squid Tip, says his training team is comprised entirely of trans people who believe that armed minorities are harder to oppress. Well, normally I'd agree with you, but we're having some issues with this you might have heard about. They're conducting their firearms training in wooded areas of Washington state. Now, the videos they have here are also troubling to me because some of them don't know how to hold their weapons. With giant rifles, you don't hold them by the barrel. You don't do that. I'm wondering who's training them and what kind of training they're getting here. Katie adds, Alex Randall is actively involved with the Antifa terror group in Seattle and has previously put out hit lists of independent journalists in the Pacific Northwest. He has recently been engaged in the anti-ICE demonstrations. So this is who we're now arming up. I don't hear a peep out of the left. Not at all. And they're the ones always about red flags. I'm looking at a whole bunch of red flags. You have a whole bunch of people who are confused about which bathroom to use that you're giving firearms to. But I guess that's okay for the left. Let me know if you think this is concerning. Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Bob in the 509 talking about our earlier story about Raz Simone, the warlord of the autonomous zone, handing out AR-15s out of the trunk of his Tesla. Ari, I didn't see a mention in the Times article about any federal or state firearms charges being levied against Mr. Simone for handing out those weapons of war from his Tesla trunk to minors during the Chaz Chop. Considering the constant yammering by Seattle's mayor and police chief and the state's governor and AG about horrible gun crimes, while they further restrict citizens' Second Amendment rights, this just seems odd. I guess special people are immune to the horrors of gun crime legislation. Yeah, you know something else, which I just remember now. Do you remember that during the autonomous zone, when you had this guy handing out the AR-15s out of the trunk of a Tesla to anybody who would stand a post in the autonomous zone, and later on, those kids in the car who just got that $30 million settlement of your taxpayer money, one of them who was killed, one of them who's maimed for life by the Chaz Chop security guards with the AR-15s? You remember all that? At that time, Bob Ferguson was trying to ban AR-15s. And you know what he could have done? He could have taken this video and said, see, this is why we need to get rid of these things, but he refused to do it. Absolutely refused to do it. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Dave in Sierra Nevada. Dave, what's up, man?
Yes, this is in regards to Kristi Noem. I would admittedly say there's a lot that I'm not going to know about what goes on internally and what's going on the street. But I think there's a point, and we've all heard it enough, but I think it needs to be kept elevated, that for 4 years, the border was open like coming into a theme park, and now they've brought her in to, say, fix it. And I give her a lot of credit. You know, it's funny because during those 4 years where the border was open, it was total imperfection, total irresponsibility. And now what we've seen since Trump has been in office and she's been in charge, perfection is expected in a circumstance that is almost impossible to try and fix without having some problems. So I think that her removal was political. My hat's off to her. She was brought into something that was a very difficult situation, and she did her best with what she had.
I would agree.
So that's what I have to say.
I would agree with you, Dave. I would say this just before we let you go. I think she did a good job. I think it was a little bit too much shock and awe versus strategic. I think there were some strategic ways to do it. Like, for example, I saw a guy getting arrested by ICE on I-5 today, right? You haven't heard anything about that in the mainstream media. I drove past it today. I knew exactly what was going on, right? There's strategic ways of doing this. Is ICE operating in our area? 100%, but they're smart enough that the shock and awe here will actually cause more problems. And it seemed to me sometimes she doubled down on the shock and awe, But I think overall, you can't ignore the results that she did a good job. There is some pushback that she put too much emphasis on herself, but I think that she was doing it for good reasons. But Dave, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. I think what didn't help is her lavish expenses with the private jet and the other allegations they were making. I think it just made it too big of a problem. And actually, I got to tell you guys, is like that's the kind of stuff we want to get rid of, the waste, fraud, and abuse. And you do a good job at the border, doesn't mean you can do that stuff too. Over here on the text line, it seems like the majority of you are actually liking Kristi Noem, but don't like that it was the Democrats that seem to have forced her out. Why now, of all times? She didn't have a particularly good hearing yesterday. That was part of the problems also. Maybe the stress of the job is getting to her. Maybe you just realized this wasn't a thing for her and she couldn't defend some of the stuff in her record. It wasn't a particularly good hearing, so maybe that's what it was. Robin Lakewood agrees with me. Why not Tom Homan? Homan's like the vice principal in high school, the enforcer, works behind the scenes. I agree. Why not Tom Homan? Look, I think Markwayne Mullin will do a good job. I really, really do. I think he's going to be more tactical. I think that's what it is. This one from Mel from Roy. The problem with Republicans, they eat their own. Right. Pete Buttigieg literally set off basically a chemical A-bomb in East Palestine, Ohio. They didn't dump him. What about his Treasury Secretary, the little gnome lady? I forgot what her name was. The little lady who looked like a hobbit. What was her deal? Yeah, she basically blew up inflation through the roof. But we're not firing her. We're keeping her. Did the Biden administration get rid of it? Oh, wait, they did get rid of somebody. The person from the Ministry of Truth, that lady who was trying to censor all of us. Yeah, that's what it was. John in Lakewood thinks Noem was fired because of the millions spent on pro-ICE ads featuring her. I thought the ads were effective in calling attention to ICE success. Perhaps the administration wants ICE to operate as robustly as it does, but more discreetly. Cabinet changes are regular occurrences in every administration. I would agree. And I would say, yeah, I think that may be part of it too. I would say, actually, you know what they should start doing is changing those ads from the people that ICE is going after, because I'm not sure those people are actually going to hear your messages if they're still sticking around. I would change that to recruiting ICE agents, which I think would be a better way to go. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss, including the fact that the scariest bill in the Washington legislature is not the income tax. We'll tell you what it is next. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, give us a call or text on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, me and Adam Smith get into it over Iran and presidential war powers. But before we get to any of that, the scariest bill in the Washington state legislature is not the income tax. I know it's bad. It's pretty bad. And by the way, it's not going away. And anybody who thinks Bob Ferguson doesn't want to pass that thing and is rethinking it, not gonna happen. I'd be shocked. And if they say no to it this session, it'll be back next session, guaranteed. They're trying to negotiate all the carve-outs they can right now. No. The scariest bill, my friends, is the one that House Democrats posted yesterday. They passed it yesterday. House Democrats voted to grant the Attorney General vast powers to demand your documents, question you under oath, dig through your records before proving you did anything wrong. No warrant. Wait a second. Weren't these the ones that got all mad about ICE going into houses without warrants? Oh, it's authoritarianism. Senate Bill 5925 passed without a single Republican vote. It would allow the Attorney General to issue civil investigative demands in response to alleged violations of state or federal law. Now, I want to know who he's targeting with this. Does he just want the powers in general? Or is it he wants to go after somebody specifically? Oh, I hope it's me. Oh, I so hope it's me. Because this is unconstitutional under every single piece of, you name it, everything that we have. This is unconstitutional, and I would love to go see the Supreme Court. I haven't been there since my 8th grade field trip. I would love to go check it out. What is he targeting with this? This thing is terrible. Where basically, now the AG can do whatever he wants until somebody challenges him in court. So according to our friends over at the Center Square, the Washington State House of Representatives on Wednesday adopted amendments and passed legislation that expand the authority of the Attorney General's office to issue civil investigative demands regarding potential violations of state and federal law. It passed with a 56-41 vote, which means completely down party lines. The Senate passed the bill on February 11th and now goes to the Senate for further consideration, given the House amendments. Senate Bill 5925, known as Engrossed Substitute Senate Bill 5925, broadens the Attorney General's ability to issue CIDs when investigating potential violations of constitutional rights, labor laws, and other state regulations. CIDs are formal pre-suit discovery tools that allow the AG's office to compel individuals or entities to produce documents, answer written questions, or provide oral testimony without first filing a lawsuit or obtaining a judicial warrant. You don't even have to have a case. You just go, I feel like investigating them. I've seen this in some other countries before. This is insane. This is absolutely insane that they're going forward with this. But would you like to know their defense of it? They claim it provides necessary legal tools to protect civil rights and speed up investigations for vulnerable communities such as immigrants and low-wage workers. Are they trying to go after ICE with this? Are they trying to go after law enforcement with this? Are they trying to go after employers with this? Quote, whether you're a bikini barista that's being sexually harassed by your employer, whether you're a cannabis shop worker who's experiencing wage theft, or whether you're being wrongfully evicted from your housing, this legislation will make it easier to bring justice swiftly so that there are no more victims. What's wrong with the tools that we have? What's wrong with the tools that they have? We tried to make it about all these groups. That's not what it's about. Oh, and by the way, the bikini baristas, their biggest problem is people trying to kidnap them, and I see you guys don't want to throw a lot of them in jail. This is by Representative Daria Farivar, the one who supports the Ayatollah, the Iranian American who's all mad he got overthrown. She says, now more than ever, our Attorney General's office needs these tools. Let's give them the tools to be sure we are protecting all the people in Washington state. What tools do they not have right now? You want them to have warrantless searches. And you guys were all mad about ICE doing that. Representative Peter Abarno, friend of the show, said this bill is akin to giving the Attorney General the ability to just kick down the door of your house and your business, demand all your paperwork, demand oral testimony, demand a deposition, hand you interrogatories just to do discovery because the Attorney General needs to do it because he can't operate within the laws we now have like other attorneys have to do. He predicted the passage of the bill is going to create witch hunts, and he's 100% right. Oh, we don't like what Hoffman's doing. Let's go and find out all his files. Hoffman, we want all your emails. We want all your sources. We want everything. And I'm just going to say, no, just absolutely not. The House passed amendments to the bill prohibiting the AG's Criminal Justice Division from issuing CIDs, requiring the Attorney General's office to possess facts and circumstances to exist that would reasonably lead to possible violations before a CID can be issued, extending file and appeal times in responding to a CID from 20 to 30 days, and mandating consistency with state agency restrictions and requirements of the Keeping Washington Working Act. During the legislative process leading up to Wednesday's vote in the House, several proposed amendments to the bill were rejected, including requiring clear and convincing evidence rather than reasonably lead. Reasonably lead can mean anything. Oh, I don't like Hoffman. I think he might have something. Let's go check it out. That's reasonable, right? I don't like the story he ran. Standards for issuing a CID, allowing individuals to obtain compensation for the cost associated with complying with the demand, and prohibiting the AG's office from sharing CID-obtained information with other law enforcement agencies for their investigation. Are you as concerned about this as I am? Because I know that for sure they're going to get around to me. They're already starting with stopping with the press passes for me, Brandy Cruz, and Jonathan Cho. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't even think it's going to come in Ferguson's first term in office. I think it's going to come when he's reelected and he thinks he's invincible. I think that's what's going to happen. I am very, very concerned about what the motivation here is. What can they not investigate now that they want to investigate? You got a theory on what they want to check out? I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious what you think they want to check out so bad with their army of what, 900 attorneys in that office right now, or the various law firms that they pay to keep on retainer so that you can't use them to sue them. I'm kind of curious. Kind of curious what you think they're doing with this. Oh, well, it costs a lot of money to keep all those attorneys doing what they do. So the income tax, you want to know how bad it is? I'll tell you how bad it is. I actually saw this because of our Congressman, Michael Baumgartner. He saw this thing from the Tax Foundation. The Tax Foundation made a graph. The proposed millionaire's tax in Washington state would yield the highest combined state and local top income tax rate in the U.S. Let me say that again. The proposed millionaire's tax in Washington state would yield the highest combined state and local top income tax rate in the U.S. Let's go down the list for a second here because we're actually twice in the top 10. Ready for this? It goes Seattle, then New York City, then Portland, Oregon, because they're doing the same stupid stuff we are, then California. We are higher than Hollywood and Beverly Hills. Newark, New Jersey, Hawaii, New York outside of New York City, New Jersey, Oregon outside of the Tri-Counties, and then Washington State again after Seattle, outside of Seattle. We would have some of the highest tax rates for the high earners in the country. In fact, the highest rate. Well, why do you think they're going to stay? Whether or not the income tax passes, and I think it's going to pass, I think we have a very, 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 very big problem right now. You know, earlier in the show, we were talking about the warlord of the autonomous zone, and I mentioned that to this day, people still ask me about the autonomous zone. That was in 2020. It's been almost 6 years since that insanity. In June, it will have been 6 years since the summer of love. Think about that for a second. And people are still asking me, hey, Ari, is that autonomous zone still a thing where you live? Was it near your house? Is that warlord guy a thing? You know what's happening already is people have already left. And the next entrepreneurs who have an idea for a business, who knows what that business is? Maybe I'll finally get my hoverboards and flying cars. But whatever that business is, they don't want to bring it to Washington. They don't want it here. A lot of the wealthy have told me they've already re-domiciled, which means they live here, but they've moved their addresses out of state, their mailing addresses out of state, which means they're not going to be taxed here anymore. So now they technically live in Florida or wherever else it is. So that means that money's already fleeing. And when the Democrats don't get enough money from this, because we know they won't, what are they going to do? They're going to start taxing all of us. But it's worse than that. They're chasing away companies. We broke the story earlier in the week that Starbucks is out of here. Starbucks, going bye-bye. They're not going to be here anymore. Do not believe all the lies they're saying where, well, we're just moving a few people. Yeah, didn't Boeing say something like that? Didn't Amazon say something like that? How many other companies have said things like that before that aren't here anymore, and we're losing innovation? We're losing innovation. There's a lot of pressure on the Democrats right now, and a lot of the Democrat members, the lawmakers themselves, are feeling the heat because they don't want to go back to their districts and try and run for re-election, and somebody says to them who has a lot of money, or maybe just somebody who's a business owner says, yeah, I'm going to make sure every single one of my employees does not vote for you because they're going to lose their jobs because of your income tax. They are hearing it from all of you. They were trying to downplay it. Now they can't anymore. Do you hear anybody calling this thing the millionaire's tax? No. Everybody is calling it the income tax because everybody knows what it is. The Democrats thought they would have a safe time cruising this thing through by calling it the millionaire tax, and it has not worked. And here's something else. If it's such an emergency, won't they pass it right now? They want to put that emergency line on it so that way you can't challenge it via referendum. Yeah. If it's such an emergency, they wouldn't be talking about waffling on it. And here's something else. For all the money they want to try and get out of this thing, it's not going to be enough. The Washington House has approved a $100 million cut to working families' child care subsidies for 2027. According to Senator Square, it's a state and federal subsidy for working families and parents enrolled in school whose income is at least 60% of the state median income. Eligibility is scheduled to expand 75% of SMI in 2029 and 85% of SMI in 2031, but House Bill 2689 aims to halt the expansion before that could happen. So you're cutting all these programs, and you claimed, oh, we're saving the children. We're saving the children. We're saving their schools, right? No, you're not saving their schools. According to the Senator Square, the Senate narrowly passed a bill Tuesday to reduce and delay some education payments to save Olympia money, despite plans to expand state spending by $2 billion amid a $2.3 billion budget shortfall in the 2025-2027 budget cycle. Senate Bill 6260 passed in a rare 25-24 vote, with 6 Democrats joining Republicans in opposition. The proposal now heads to the State House for consideration. If approved, it would implement some of the reductions Democrats promised in their supplemental operating budget proposals, but at a cost. So what you're doing is you're reducing school funding. You're reducing daycare funding. You're reducing child care funding. I thought it was about the children. Oh, they also cut hundreds of millions of dollars out of Medicaid and Medicare also? I thought it was about the seniors. I thought it was about Medicaid. I thought it was about Medicare. No. The Democrats have a spending problem, and nothing will ever satisfy it. How many other businesses do you guys need? I mean, really bad timing with this whole Starbucks thing. You know that Bob Ferguson is probably on the phone to whoever the CEO is over there these days and saying, dude, you're killing me here. And the guy goes, no, actually, you're killing me. We did all your woke stuff. We agree with you on all the woke stuff. But at some point, we got to keep our company in business. And why would we keep all these corporate jobs here? You know, I'm still waiting on my press pass from the NBA. When I reached out to them about the Adam Silver conversation with Bob Ferguson, still waiting on that. Haven't heard back from it. I would love to know what the NBA says about all this, but you have to have special press credentials to cover the NBA. Everybody's getting out of here. And who's going to be left? Us. We're going to be left, and we're going to be on the hook paying for all this. And to tell you how bad this is, my brother called me the other day. My brother works for a big tech company, and somebody in his big tech company said that they are getting reassigned to Seattle. And my first reaction was, holy cow, you're kidding. They're being sent here? And he goes, yeah, the guy doesn't want to go. He's seen all the national news. He's worried about what's going to happen with his kids. He's worried about what's going to happen with the crime. He's worried about what's going to happen with his paycheck. He's not sure it's worth it. And he might actually switch to another company because he doesn't want to come to Seattle. I don't know about you guys, what happened in your churches, but I remember when I first moved here. When I first moved here in my synagogue, we were part of these young families that were all moving to town. We weren't here for the tech boom. We were here to be closer to my wife's family because I had job opportunities here. But a lot of other people, tech boom, tech boom, tech boom, tech boom. People every single month, new families, new faces in synagogue. Oh, so nice to see you. Kids for my kids to play with. I used to coach 3 baseball teams, 3 Jewish baseball teams, because there were so many kids just in my little neighborhood. All that's gone now. COVID wiped out the tech community. When you can work remotely from anywhere, why would you stay here? And a lot of people left. And that's been bad policies after bad policies after bad policies. And everybody I know who left, everybody always tells me this, and these are the people from my community. They miss Seattle. They miss what it was like in our synagogue. They miss what it was like with the schools. They miss all that. They miss their friends. But their kids are happier, and their kids are safer, and they have more money in their pocket, and they don't regret it for a second. Not at all. There's things they miss, of course, but they don't regret it. And anytime I ask you guys whether or not you've considered moving, you all say the exact same thing to me. What is your red line? What's going to be it for you? And a lot of people like me can't go anywhere. We're here. This is where our families are. This is where our jobs are. We're not going anywhere. But other people are just saying, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. And you think the highest tax rates in the country will stay with the high-end earners? Of course not. It's going to be for everybody else. This one from the 253. No wonder the Dems are drinking on the job. They can't handle the pressure. So true. Maybe they need the money to keep up the bar in the Capitol. This one from Eben and Bonnie Lake. Ari, this one is simple. Democrats want to give the Attorney General all the power he needs to destroy anyone that disagrees with them. That means you and me. We are in a cold civil war. The only people that know about it are the far leftists and a few conservatives. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it looks like right now. This one here from Robin Lakewood. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. How commie of them. Yeah, he also says, guilty until proven innocent. How commie of them. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. That's exactly what this is. And it's a little scary that they gave all this power to the AG. And it's very hypocritical that they gave all this power to the AG while criticizing the very same things out of the Trump administration that they claim to care so much about. If Democrats didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. And speaking of how bad their standards are, a girl is suing the Edmonds School District because apparently she graduated with a very high GPA and she can't read anything. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. I'm kind of torn on this story. While I want to beat up the public school system, at some point the parents got to take responsibility for this. And I'm not sure I'm going to blame the Edmonds School District as much as I would normally do so under this. So this one's according to King 5. For most families, a high school diploma is the key to unlocking your future. But for McKenna Simonson, an Edmonds School District graduate with special needs, hers did just the opposite. As a student with special needs, her graduation day was filled with promise. I was happy. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally made it. That's all nice. That's all wonderful, right? That sounds like a really nice, heartwarming story. 4 years later, though, she feels it was all a time of broken promises. The academics at Linwood High were hard, but McKenna graduated with a 3.87 GPA, despite finishing her senior year reading at a first grade level. She was asked, do you feel like they prepared you for life? She said, not at all. I should have earned that diploma, not just something that really got me nowhere. After graduation, she planned to enroll in the Edmonds School District's vocational program, which helps transition special needs students into independent life. It would have been free of charge. Because she received a diploma, however, McKenna was ineligible. Instead, she had to enroll in a similar program at Bellevue College at a cost of more than $40,000 a year. Now, McKenna's family is suing the Edmonds School District, claiming benevolent discrimination. Her attorneys argue that, well-intentioned or not, the district should have withheld her diploma until she completed its vocational program. Quote, by letting her kind of pass along, giving her these grades and then giving her this diploma, which shut the door on her transition services access, they actually caused her harm, said the attorney. They said her diploma was more of a participation trophy. I'm actually on the school district side for an interesting reason. Where are the parents in all this? Where are the parents in all of this? Look, one of my kids was skating through school. And I noticed they didn't have basic skills in certain subjects. And I said, how the hell is this even possible? And it turns out the kid was just really good at scamming the teachers. So we had to crack down and work with the kid. I know a lot of parents with special needs kids. I've worked with kids my entire life. I've worked with kids. And I know that these parents have done everything, sacrificed everything to make sure their kid wasn't just given a participation trophy and worked. Where are the parents reading with the kid? Where are the parents saying, did you do your homework tonight? Where are the parents saying, show me your homework? I don't understand. I ask my daughter that question every single night. I ask my sons that question every single night. During COVID, I was sitting at the dining room table with my kids while I was doing my work and they were doing their work to make sure they were actually doing the work. Where are the parents in all this? As much as I want to beat up on the Edmonds School District, and I'm going to in a second, where are the parents? You should say, this isn't challenging enough. Do you go to parent-teacher conferences? Oh, she's doing fine. She's so sweet. Great. What'd she learn? This is on the parents as much as it's on the school district. Okay, now that I finished bashing the parents for a second, let's move over to the school district for a second. The school district, and we've known this for years, the Edmonds School District is a far-left wackadoodle place. But this is something they've been doing since long before COVID. Oh, we feel bad for you. All right, classes now pass-fail. Oh, we feel bad for you. You didn't do all the requirements? Well, we don't want you to have to go to summer school. Let's just move you along, like a stormtrooper. Move along. That's what it is. And yet, they managed to graduate a kid who's reading at a first grade level just because they assume she's dumb because she has special needs. Special needs mean a lot of things. I know a kid who has special needs. He's about to graduate from engineering school. Depends what your special needs are. Is it autism? Is it a physical handicap? Is it something else? But to say this kid reads at a first grade level and now you're suing the school district, I hate everybody in this. I'm mad at everybody about this story. And you know, a lot of parents sacrifice a lot to make sure their kids get a good education. I work 3 jobs. This is my favorite one, don't get me wrong, but I work 3 jobs because private school's expensive, but it's worth it so my kids don't have to go to the public schools. But here, I can't entirely blame the public schools. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think this is on the parents as much as it's on the school district? Because I think it's both. Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. This one here. Dan Smith says on the text line, I'm still working with my 26-year-old daughter on her homework for her engineering degree. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm still all over my kid who's in another country, serving in another army. Well, how can you use this to enhance your... You know what my son's job in the Israeli army is? Do you know what his job is? This is great. He is the guy who fixes the guns. So he's learning everything about guns. I said, when you come back here, you are stripping, cleaning, and upgrading everything I have. That's what you're doing for sure. You're going to know a lot more about him than I do. But I'm like, how can you use this to get a job in the weapons world afterwards? Israel's talking about now making their own weapons rather than buying them from the U.S. How can you expand this to be a job? I'm on my kid all the time about this. All the time. It never stops. It never stops. That's what you do as a parent. So what do you think? You think I'm being too hard on the parents? You think I'm not being hard enough on the school district? Give me a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Our friends over at Investigate West have a fascinating new article, by the way. In the last decade, 349 Washington State teachers have lost their licenses due to a variety of reasons. Out of the 349 Washington State teachers who lost their licenses, 160 of those were due to sexual misconduct. Mo Clark from Investigate West named every single one of them in an investigation. Every single one of them. And it is really messed up. We're not going to name all of them because I don't have that long of a show to go through every single name here. But out of the 349 Washington teachers who lost their licenses this year, 160 of them were due to sexual misconduct. That's because predators go where there is prey. It seems like now the schools, whether they're public, whether they're private, whether they're colleges, it just seems like they're all brainwashing for the left. I mean, we used to think the homeschool kids were the weird ones. Now they may be the only normal ones. Really, where are all the college campus protests for the Iranians? Where are all the people who said the Ayatollah is oppressing the Iranians and we need to push back against the Ayatollah? Where's all the protests on the campuses? Haven't seen them anywhere. Where are all them? 30 to 40,000 Iranian protesters were executed, were killed, were disappeared by the Ayatollah and his goon squad. Where are all the protests? Where are all the protests for them? Where's the encampment at University of Washington? Haven't seen that yet. Not that I want all this stuff. Where's all the protests? It's amazing how silent you guys are. Oh, instead, you know what we get out of University of Washington? This is a fun one. Remember Super UW? They're the kids that just got away with basically a slap on the wrist for causing over $1 million in damage to the engineering building. Basically got charged with a gross misdemeanor rather than any actual felonies. And if you want to hear all the felonies they could have been charged with, go to my show, opening segment, yesterday over at KVI.com. Well, Super UW, along with their warm and cuddly terrorist-supporting friendly groups, posted this on social media. This is on Instagram. This is on Instagram right now. Death to America, death to Israel, glory to the martyrs, long live the Islamic Republic of Iran, long live the axis of resistance. That's what they posted to social media in response to the Ayatollah being taken out. This includes groups like Nidal Seattle, Super UW. Wow, really? The axis of resistance. They're mad about this. Oh, it ain't just the staff, by the way. It's also some of the teachers. Some of the teachers were talking in their interior chats of the school about how much they didn't like the school's public response to these students being charged with gross misdemeanors because, how dare you? It was legitimate form of resistance. Legitimate form of resistance. These students should be celebrated. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Here's another one. Here's what one of their teachers posted here. Ready for this one? This is from, who is this guy? An adjunct professor at the University of Washington who's a full-time teacher at Green River College. If Israel assassinated Iran's supreme leader, it only seems fair that Iran should respond in kind. Are you kidding me with this? Blank the USA, blank Israel. This is a teacher at the University of Washington and Green River College. This is who's teaching the kids. Beyond crazy. Absolutely beyond crazy. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Nancy in Redmond. Nancy, what's going on?
I you were just talking about that girl student from the Edmond School District.
Yeah.
And I saw a news story on TV about it either last night or this morning, and I think there's another piece to this because I think the reason why the parents are suing, in my opinion, but is because she's in some program now at BCC that was going to be I can't remember if they said $40,000 or $60,000 at BCC, no less, for some program there. And I think that the parents want the school district to pay for that.
Yeah, I mentioned
That's
that.
my opinion.
No, I mentioned that, Nancy, when I was doing the segment. I said they lost out on this program, but I got to wonder, how do you not know your kid is reading at a first grade level? How do you not know? I mean, for example, there was a time, this was kind of funny actually, where the school was convinced my daughter couldn't read. Convinced of it, right? So they called us and they said, your daughter's not reading in school and we're worried she can't read. And I said, oh, really? And I think it was my wife who took the call. And she goes, well, she's sitting there on the couch reading right now, and actually said, here, you got Zoom, and just flipped around the camera on FaceTime, and she's sitting there on the couch reading. It was because she was lazy and didn't want to do her work in class, and she was skating past the whole thing. That's the school that's keeping up on it. But unfortunately, so many of these school districts are just saying pass, 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 as opposed to actually cutting down on it.
But anyway, I just... to me, I think that's the biggest piece.
Well, I understand what they're suing for, but for me, I think there's enough blame to go around here. I can't totally put it on the school district as much as I would love to. Oh, so you agree with me on that? Okay. All right, just making sure.
Yeah.
All right. All right, appreciate it, Nancy. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, Clash of the Titans, me versus Adam Smith on the conversation of whether or not the war against Iran is justified. That's coming up next. You don't want to miss it. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. With so much going on in Washington, D.C. this week, it's great that we have our friends in Congress who like to give us calls and give us updates directly from the floor as the votes happen, as they are actually happening. Joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line, Representative Adam Smith. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Ari. It's always a pleasure. I appreciate the chance.
Now, as I understand it, you just took a vote on the floor. What was it on?
Well, the vote was to basically require Congress to approve the war in Iran. And so, it doesn't look like it's going to pass, didn't pass in the Senate, and it's more a sense of Congress, so it's not binding in that sense, but it is an expression of whether or not Congress should have to approve this war, and I think it should. So I voted yes.
Gotcha. So on June 3rd, 2011, you said the following in a statement, and this was regarding what was going on in Libya. This one you said, I applaud Speaker Boehner and Congressman Kucinich for bringing up these resolutions for debate. Congress should express its view on the ongoing conflict in Libya. I do, however, oppose both resolutions. Both would tie the president's hands, undermine our ability to successfully accomplish our mission, and send the wrong message to the world and our allies. How do you square those two together?
I was wrong, quite simply. And that's part of the reason why having experience in Congress matters. And I think that's something I want people to understand. I'm not happy about Iran. I wasn't happy about Libya. I wasn't happy about Iraq. I wasn't happy about Afghanistan. And it is very, very tempting to look at problems like that, as profound and deep as the problems with Iran. I mean, they are a threat to the region. They are a state sponsor of terror. Missile program, creeping towards a nuclear weapon, though that's a good deal more complicated. But what I learned from Libya, Iraq, and Afghanistan is an excessive belief that the point of a gun can solve those problems and not, in fact, make them worse is a mistake. And so, that's the way I felt. I had serious misgivings about Libya at first. I went through a whole series of briefs with the administration. I went through a whole series of briefs, State Department, DOD, heard the whole thing, and finally was like, okay, yeah, fine. And I was wrong. So I've learned from that, and I recognize that excessively relying on the military to go out in the world and solve problems frequently makes it worse, comes at an enormous cost, and is simply not as easy as it looks.
Well, negotiating with Iran hasn't worked either. We've spent decades trying to negotiate with them. They were stalling for time. Bribing them with money not to build a nuclear weapon clearly didn't work either. So what options are left?
Yeah. You see, there's several different pieces here. And one of the problems with the way the Trump administration has approached this, and I was actually on an interview with Katie Pavlich on News Nation in which she kept throwing nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, terrorism. You got to take it sort of piece by piece in terms of what we're trying to prevent here. So let's just take the nuclear weapon. Actually, negotiations worked on the nuclear weapon. They got rid of their highly enriched uranium. They agreed to allow inspectors in. We had their nuclear program
I'm sorry, Congressman, I got to stop you. They didn't work, and Israel sabotaging their centrifuges and other activities like that is what slowed down their nuclear program.
No, that's simply factually incorrect. Now, it is a fair criticism, clear agreement, that it didn't do anything about the ballistic missile program. It didn't do anything about their support for the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas and other groups. That is a fair criticism. But on the nuclear program itself, they adhered to that agreement. They allowed inspectors in, and they took their enriched uranium down. Yeah, Israel did that. We did some stuff. But what ultimately 100% stopped the program was that agreement, all right? We have not stopped the program. In fact, the president saying that we have to go stop their nuclear program makes it very clear the Midnight Hammer didn't work, all right? It didn't stop their nuclear program, and now we've launched a full-scale war to deal with that.
Wait a second.
Ballistic missile
if they weren't enriching uranium and they weren't making nuclear weapons, what was going on at Fordo?
When? What time frame are you talking about?
At any time frame. If they're not doing nuclear development, what are they doing at Fordo?
Oh, no. Once we tore up the JCPOA, went back to nuclear development. They got all the way up to % enriched uranium from what our intelligence.
But I'm confused. I'm confused, Congressman, because Joe Biden was making deals with them and unfreezing their assets. And they said they weren't going to be enriching the stuff, and he was making these deals so that they wouldn't be doing it. So what were they doing at Fordo?
Well, and I believe, or I am the last person on God's green earth to defend Joe Biden. Okay, I've made that perfectly clear, and that's not my point. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the JCPOA and the effect it had. Once that was torn up, yeah, no, absolutely, Iran was back to enriching uranium. Now, they were always claiming that they weren't actually going to build a nuclear weapon. They had their fatwa against it, that the Ayatollah Khomeini, may he not rest in peace, was saying that they weren't going to do, but they were absolutely enriching it. But I realize, by the way, that this isn't just about nukes. You've got to deal with their ballistic program and all of that. But launching this war in this way has set off all manner of disruptions throughout the Middle East. And at the end of it, where are we going to be that's that much different? It does not look like the regime is falling. They will reconstitute and rebuild. I just don't think that war is always the answer. And again, that's the lesson I learned from 30 years of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya. We might on that to think if we go use the military, it's going to be able to affect the exact result we want. You start a war, all kinds of unwell things happen. That is my concern.
So then do you think that Barack Obama made a mistake by giving the $1.3 billion in cash to the Iranians, the number one state sponsor of terror in the world, to keep the JCPOA?
Well, it depends on what your priorities are. If you're talking about nuclear weapons, I think that, and as I said, the shortfall of that agreement is it didn't deal with terrorism, and it didn't deal with the ballistic missile program. What I support against Iran, which degraded all of that. Particularly after October 7th, there was no question that Israel had to fight back. They had to fight back against Hamas, they had to fight back against Hezbollah, and they had to fight back against Iran. They did that, and they severely weakened them, which was a positive. This war takes it to another level and has now involved a dozen different countries with no end in sight and no clear military objective beyond what had already been accomplished in the 12-day war is a bit of an overstatement. Obviously, that war went on for a lot more than 12 days and dealt with, Hezbollah, Hamas, and a bunch of other groups, Syria as well. Let's just say the 2 years of conflict post-October 7th. This is tipping over a big can of worms in the Middle East, and we've already seen the impacts of that.
And the last few minutes we have with Congressman Adam Smith from our very own Washington State. So for 47 years, you've had this regime killing Americans. We're talking about a body count over 1,000. Never mind what they did to their own people. Never mind what they did to other people in the Middle East. Never mind October 7th and everything else. Let's just focus on the American aspect of this for a second. So the deals we did with them didn't do anything under Reagan, under Bush, under Clinton, under Bush, under Obama, under Trump, under Biden. They were still really bad guys. So what's the way out of this?
I don't agree that they didn't do anything. And the bulk of the Americans that have been killed by the Iranians were as a result of the Iraq war that we kicked off in 2003. And yes, I absolutely hold the Iranians accountable and responsible for the IEDs and the support for militias against them. But that war also contributed to it as well. I just don't think that the military is always the answer. I think there is a way to contain this threat without stumbling into this war that is going to be very, very costly.
Well, Congressman, I appreciate you coming on the show to share your perspective, and I appreciate you always being willing to have these conversations. And thank you so much for your time today, especially on such a busy day on the House floor.
Yeah, thanks, Ari. I appreciate it. Let me be clear. The troops who are fighting this fight, my thoughts are with them. We need to stop them. They're in a very dangerous situation, and we need to all be united on that front.
All right. Appreciate you saying so. Appreciate your time today. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. In the last 24 hours, some of the biggest names on the right have slipped the mask of their complete insanity. I don't know if you saw this, but Candace Owens, who I wouldn't even consider a member of the right anymore, said that Israel did 9/11. That was her post. No proof, no nothing. Just throw it out there. Just asking questions, right? You know something I find fascinating about this? There is a connection to Israel and 9/11. I'm going to tell you what it was. On one of the first planes to be hijacked was a guy named Daniel Lewin. He was a 31-year-old former officer in the Israeli Special Forces unit, Sayeret Matkal. That's like one of their special commando units. It's actually the exact same one that Netanyahu was in, and some of the other people like Ehud Barak and Naftali Bennett. He's a co-founder of an internet company that was worth billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Sitting in first class, he saw the hijacking going on. He reportedly rushed the hijackers and was the first passenger murdered by one of them who he didn't know who was sitting behind him. He left behind a wife and 2 children. Some people even say he was the first victim of 9/11 because that's before any planes hit any towers, and don't forget the terrorists had to take over those planes first, and some people couldn't fight back and some people didn't resist. But Candace Owens thinks Israel did 9/11. At this point, it's just, oh, how can we get the clicks from the bots? Not just her. Tucker Carlson came out with a doozy, an absolute doozy. He said that the reason the war in Iran is happening right now is because of Chabad. For those of you who don't know what Chabad is a Jewish outreach organization that comes from a more Hasidic sect called Chabad Lubavitch. They had their leader, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, for generations. The last one died back in the early 1990s. They have their headquarters in Brooklyn. And what do? They do drug treatments for people. They feed people who are hungry. They house people who don't have housing. And they give you a Jewish message with it. If I am traveling for a speaking engagement and I cannot find a Jewish community, I will find a Chabad, usually, somewhere nearby. And I know that I can go there and I can do services and I can get a little l'chaim if I need one in some potato kugel. I know that that is going to be there. And they're accusing, and Tucker Carlson is accusing Chabad of wanting this war. What was his rationale for this? He says Chabad wants Mashiach. Okay, he mispronounced it, and he also mispronounced Chabad. But, okay, what is Mashiach? It's actually pronounced Mashiach. That is the Hebrew word for the Messiah. They're very big on wanting the Messiah to come, and they want the third temple rebuilt in Jerusalem. Guess what, Tucker? So do I. In fact, I pray for it 3 times a day in the 3 services we do every single day. It's at the end of the Amidah and other places, by the way, but I do it 3 times a day. You know something about the Chabadniks, the people in the Chabad movement? They believe, I believe, they're going to be the last ones to ever end up in Israel. You know why? They believe you shouldn't leave anywhere until you get everybody to Israel. And they have to make sure they bring everybody in before then. The Lubavitcher Rebbe himself never moved to Israel and was offered many, many, many times. But Chabad, the ones who give you a little l'chaim, who have the Chabad telethon, who are dancing in the streets, who are lighting the menorahs on the corners, those guys, they're the reason for the war in the Middle East. So what you're basically saying is that you think Donald Trump is controlled by the Jews, and what you're basically saying is that Donald Trump is a puppet. Will you tell that to his face? Really? Will you tell Donald Trump you think he's controlled by somebody else and you think he's a puppet of somebody else to his face? You're a coward, Tucker Carlson. You're an absolute coward. Because for you, you want to say that without saying Donald Trump. That's what you want to say. Then there's Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly had on one of the most anti-Israel Jews, Glenn Greenwald, who I don't even know what he does with his life these days. I think he used to be a journalist. Anyway, he's just terrible. He's been wrong about everything, been wrong on everything about foreign policy. And once again, she put out this thing that people are getting paid $7,000 a post by Israel. $7,000 a post. James Lindsay, our friend who does all the education stuff, he did a great job with this. He did a pro-Israel post, and he goes, now where's my $7,000? Right? Hey, I do pro-Israel posts all the time. I haven't seen a dime from any of this. Like, if it was $7,000 a post, $7,000 a month, which one is it? If there's some great Jewish conspiracy, I would love to have my turn at the space laser. We have one now. It's shooting down the missiles that are coming from Iran. Can I have it in a day with the space laser? Can I have that? Somebody, please? Can I have my check for any of this? And you know what? They don't sound that much different than Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom said this week, as we discussed yesterday, Israel is an apartheid state, even though Arabs are on the Supreme Court, even though Arabs are in the Knesset, which is their version of Congress, even though Arabs serve in the IDF, even though Arabs have full voting rights. Give me a break. Give me a break. Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly are no longer thought leaders. And then there's something else that Megyn Kelly did that was just such low class. I've seen her do this before. She's doing a not-so-humble brag about how many followers she has and how well she's doing and very, very excited about all this stuff. But what was interesting was who she decided to try and dunk on. So Megyn Kelly, in her post about how many followers she has, was talking about how she has so many more followers than CBS. Why CBS? Of all the news outlets, shouldn't it be CNN, MSNBC? Why CBS? Because Barry Weiss is running the news over at CBS. And then she was talking about how she has so many more podcast downloads or whatever it is than Ben Shapiro. Why Ben Shapiro? Why not Tucker Carlson? Why not anybody else? You all know the answer to that. These are not leaders of the right. There's no difference between them and a lot of the people on the left. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. What is going on with the war in Iran? We'll have the latest details for you, plus some fun with Marco Rubio when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, chances to win fantabulous prizes. Plus, also a new bill in the Washington legislature could be sending the homeless into your neighborhood. But before we get to any of that, I haven't believed what these outlets are saying, that the American people are not supporting the war with Iran. That, they don't support it at all. Anytime I mention it, the only thing you guys bring up is just, all right, what's next? That's normally what you bring up. You go, we're all for taking out the Ayatollah, but what comes after this? Kind of want to plan for that, and we don't want boots on the ground. Anytime I ask you guys your opinion, that's what you say. And there's very little dissent on this. The dissent is just, I don't want boots on the ground, keep bombing the hell out of them, and tell me what the end game is here. That's it. So I didn't understand all this polling from people saying, oh, no, nobody supports it. Well, our friend Batya Unger Sargon, who's over on News Nation, posted this today. She posted the results of every major poll. CBS, 85% of Republicans support the president's strikes in Iran. Fox News, 84% of Republicans support the strikes in Iran. Washington Post, 81% of Republicans support the strikes in Iran. Reuters, 82% of Republicans support the strikes in Iran, but the mainstream media says MAGA is split on Iran. So I assume that the other 20% are the people who listen to Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly. I assume that's who that is, the other 20%. Steve Bannon types. That's who it is, right? Because there's no division here. No division at all. In fact, CNN was even forced to report that Donald Trump is more popular with his party than ever before.
Republicans love Donald Trump more than any president's own party supporters loved him at this particular point. Just take a look here. Okay, own party supporters, 21st century presidents, own party approval about at this point in the second term. Bush was at 77%. Obama was at 77%. Look at this. 86% of Republicans approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing at this point. That is higher than either Obama or Bush had within their own party at this point. Trump's magic touch has not seemed to wear off yet when it comes to the Republican base.
And what kind of approval are we talking about here?
Okay, so we're talking about overall approval here. How about the strongly approved, not just like, but love. Okay, we're going to look at these same presidents again. Strong approval among your own party's base. What you see here is Trump is the only one who gets a majority at this point in their presidency. Obama was at 48%. Bush was at 47%. You see here Trump at 53%. Not as high as overall approval rating, but still getting a majority of the Republican base, at least in the average of polls, to say that they still really like him.
Okay, so let's forget Republicans for a second, because obviously we're all biased. Like the mainstream media, I can call out my bias. We're all biased on this. So, according to the Daily Wire, which is citing a poll from On Message, President Donald Trump's massive military operation against Iran is popular with 60% of likely voters. 60%. The poll shows that 56% of likely voters support the United States taking out Iranian leadership, while 63% agree with targeting Iranian nuclear and ballistic missile sites. Nearly 70% agree on the Trump administration's argument that Iran is a threat to global peace and democracy. And 76% agree that if Iran built a nuclear weapon, it would pose a direct threat to the United States. This is completely in contradiction of everything the Democrat Party says. And in fact, the text lines blew up after my little debate with Adam Smith just a little while ago. You guys weren't happy about it at all. This one here from the other Mike in Everett. Hi, Ari. I highly disagree with Congressman Adam Smith. Now, granted, I, as a common citizen, do not have any access to the intel the government has, but I have a strong feeling that Iran was working on its nukes even when the Iran deal was in effect. Pause. That's exactly what I was saying. How did Fordo get finished that quickly? You can't build something like that in just 4 years. That's not how it happened. They were doing it the entire time. You know, Israel had an operation where they sent in spies. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to say it was Israel. Somebody sent in spies, And the Fordo nuclear facility was offline. It was off the grid. It wasn't hooked into the internet at all because they were worried about hackers so bad. Somebody still got a virus in there to get their centrifuges to spin faster. That broke their centrifuges and set them back. There was other things they did, taking out Iranian nuclear scientists, bombing the locations with small little IED kind of things to stall them, to slow them down for years and years. Well, why'd they need to do that if they weren't developing anything? That's why I pressed Adam Smith so hard on that. And he finally said, well, yes, there were things that Israel and America did. Okay, dude, we know that. Then they weren't adhering to the terms of the nuclear deal, were they? He said, this one back from our friend Other Mike and Everett, there's an interview with Steve Witkoff where in one of the last few rounds of negotiation with Iran, the negotiators came on and flat out stated they had enough 60% enriched uranium to make 11 nukes. And I think it might have been Rubio who said it might only take 7 to 10 days to get to the 60% enrichment. Yes, that's the problem. That's exactly the problem, which is why you had to go now. Now, you want to talk about the bombing of Fordo? Wait, I thought you said it was Adam Smith just said, well, I guess it wasn't that successful. You don't think that stalled them too? Everything helps stall them, but at some point you got to deal with the problem. I got a little leak in a toilet in my house right now, okay? Some little piece of it is leaking, but it's a small drip, 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 and I need the plumber to come. It's outside my wheelhouse of expertise. It's this little thing. I can't do it myself. I had a plumber to come. But in the meantime, I put this little pan there, right? So I put this little pan, and every day I go and I empty the pan, leak, 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 and I empty the pan every day, and I empty the pan again. But if I don't deal with the leak, eventually I'm going to have a blowout on my entire house. So thank God, hopefully the plumber came today. He's supposed to have come today, but hopefully the plumber came today. Where you deal with it. You can't just keep emptying the pan and hoping everything is going to be okay down the road. You got to fix the leak. That's exactly what it is. This one here from Bob in the 509. Ari, kudos to Congressman Smith for occasionally coming on your show to push the same old line. That being said, we'd be better off if Crazy Sawant takes his seat. It's not like she'd be voting any different than Smith, and her lunatic fringe persona would settle alongside Pramila PayPal. It's not PayPal. It's Jayapal, but I assume that's an autocorrect there. And provide the nation a constant picture of just how far urban Puget Sound is from mainstream American values. I'm going to tell you something here, guys. Is that a little behind the scenes? I don't know if you heard it in the interview. He asked to come on the show. I didn't ask him on the show. His team reached out to me right after the bombing and said, hey, can we come on the show? Why do you think they want to come on the show? Because they're afraid of Kshama Sawant would be my guess. I didn't ask them that specifically, but that would be my guess. They want to come in and talk about all this. And all the things they're saying online, all the things he's saying online are outside what he normally says online. Normally on foreign policy, he's usually in lockstep with the Republican types. This is out of character for him. I think he's worried about losing to Sawant. But I think there's a bigger problem here. All the polling I just told you is really encouraging, right? Really great. But we also saw that a lot of the young people are souring on Israel. We've also seen that a lot of the young people are actually saying they didn't vote for Kamala Harris because, even though they're Democrats, because they thought she supported Israel even though she didn't. And I think he's worried about the exact same thing. I think he's worried about that polling. That's why Gavin Newsom's going down the crazy road. That's exactly what it is. That's what it is. They're worried about the polling from their own base. They're scared of their own base, but they're also scared of losing you. Now, do I think Adam Smith is better than Kshama Sawant? Yes, 1,000%. If it's him and Kshama Sawant are the top two, I will vote for Adam Smith. I will, even though I disagree with him on 80% of the issues these days? 100% it's better than Kshama Sawant. 100%. But I think what he's worried about is how far left the Democrat Party is going. And now you have a bigger problem on your hands. You don't have Democrats or Republicans. You have people who hate America, and you have the people that love America, and then you got everybody else in between. And I think this is not a good sign for the way things are going in this country. This one here from John in Lakewood. Ari, Adam Smith says the war against Iran is not the answer because the Dems hate the U.S. and the military. Since Korea, they used unilateral extra Geneva Convention rules of engagement to tie military hands to give relief to the enemy. Well, hang on a second. That's exactly what I called him out for. Congressman Adam Smith, don't forget, sent that letter about he was mad at the Republicans back in 2011 when Barack Obama unilaterally took out Gaddafi, unilaterally took him out. And Adam Smith was mad the Republicans were saying, dude, you didn't get authorization from us to do this. And let's also remember this, is that what happened as a result of what we did in Libya? What happened as a result of Barack Obama in Libya? Gaddafi was a lunatic, right? But Benghazi happened right after that, right? These things have consequences. The big concern right now is, are there sleeper cells from Iran in the U.S., which were allowed through the border during the Biden administration or any other administration for that matter? And are they gearing up to do something? We already saw it happen in Texas last weekend. I am concerned about something like this. I am very, very concerned about something like this. Eben in Bonnie Lake says, Ari, it sounds like your leaky toilet is a lot like Washington Democrats, except it fires the stuff back at you when you're done sitting on it. It needs to be fixed. Very good. Very, very good. So we have all this polling on Iran. We have all this polling on the war with Iran. And yet we had the vote earlier today, the vote about reaffirming that the Islamic Republic of Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terror. 53 Democrats voted against it. Voted against reaffirming that today in the Senate. It's crazy. Caroline Levitt pointed this out, that just 3 years ago, a resolution condemning the terrorist Iranian regime passed the House by a vote of 420-1. Now 53 Democrats just refused to reaffirm that Iran remains the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. She says Trump derangement syndrome is melting their brains, and I think she's 100% right. I think she is. And then they try to project, oh, the Republicans aren't for this either. Yeah, we are. You just all heard the polling we've said. The Democrats have such severe TDS that if Donald Trump cured cancer tomorrow, if Donald Trump saved a puppy tomorrow, they would say, kill the puppy. Kill the puppy right now. That puppy has to die. Kill that puppy. Oh, Donald Trump's walking down the street and saved a little kitty cat. Saved a little kitten. Nope, kill the kitten because Donald Trump saved it. It doesn't deserve to live. In fact, Caroline Levitt was calling out that gal from CNN with the eyebrows. He was calling her out. She was calling her out for the fact that all she wants to do is make Donald Trump look bad. Doesn't even want to report the facts.
For these families. Given what Secretary Hegseth said this morning, is it the position of this administration that the press should not prominently cover the deaths of U.S. service members?
No, it's the position of this administration that the press in this room and the press across the country should accurately report on the success of Operation Epic Fury and the damage it is doing to the rogue Iranian regime that has threatened the lives of every single American in this room. If the Iranian regime had their choice, they would kill every single person in this room. And so we can all be very grateful that we have an administration and that we have men and women in our armed forces who are willing to sacrifice their own lives for the rest of us in this room and for every American across the country and for every troop that is based in the Middle East. That's what these...
Secretary Hegseth was complaining that it was front page news about these 6 service members who were killed.
That's not what the Secretary said, Caitlin, and that's not what the Secretary meant, and you know it. You know you are being disingenuous. There is not... We've never had a Secretary of Defense who cares more...
Get through or tragic things happen. It's front page news. I get it. The press only wants to make the president look bad. Yeah, as you know, we cover the deaths of U.S. service members under every president.
The press does only want to make the president look bad. That's a fact. Especially you. No, listen to me. Especially you and especially CNN. And the Secretary of Defense cares deeply about our war fighters and our men and women in uniform. He travels all across this country to meet with them, to connect with them, and your network has hardly ever probably reported on that. You also had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Chairman Kane, who's a brave patriot, standing alongside the secretary at the Pentagon this morning, again expressing his condolences to these families. And I just told you that the President of the United States will be attending their dignified transfer. So please,
that's not making the president look bad. That's showcasing that.
We expect you to cover that as you should. We expect you to cover that as you should, Caitlin. But you and your network know that you take every single thing this administration says and tries to use it to make the president look bad. That is an objectable fact.
I don't think covering troop deaths is trying to make.
If you're trying to argue right now that CNN's overwhelming coverage is not negative of President Donald Trump, I think the American people would tend to agree, and your ratings would tend to disagree with that as well.
By the way, I love that you hear some other reporters laughing in the background. I like that you heard that at the end. I could hear it through my headphones, and some of them are giggling at that. Look, we know that's what CNN is. And here's something else. CNN never cared about any of this kind of stuff when Obama was president. Never cared about the stuff when Biden was president. Really downplayed that whole Afghanistan thing. Of course you should cover when soldiers die. But you should cover what they died for. And CNN is trying to make it sound like everybody's opposed to this war. It just ain't the case. Unfortunately, people die in war. They do. But unless you talk about what they died for, you're doing them a dishonor and them a disservice. I spoke a few weeks ago about how Democrats are using deaths to their advantage because that's what they only care when somebody dies, whether it's Jews, whether it's a minority, whether it's anything else. That seems to be the only time they care. They only seem to care about the military when somebody dies, and they can use it to their advantage, not when a Democrat's in office. Caroline Leavitt was 100% right for calling out Caitlin Collins on that. 100% correct, because that's what CNN does. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from James in Renton. James, what's going on?
Well, you said 53 Democrats in the Senate voted against this resolution.
The 53 Democrats who voted against the 53 Democrats who voted against, excuse me, it wasn't the Senate. Excuse me, I apologize if I said the Senate. It was the House of Representatives, not the Senate. Not the Senate. It was the House.
Okay.
Yeah, if I said the Senate, good correction. You're fine there, James. Yes, because there's not that many of them in the Senate. Yes. No, it was in the House that 53 voted against it. And by the way, only those 53. The rest were supporting it. The rest were supporting it 100%. But who are these 53? Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, that whole crew. That's who it was. With me? Oh, we lost James. Lost James there. Anywho, okay, we're fine with quick corrections. We're perfectly fine with that kind of stuff. But the fact remains is that the Democrats would rather use the casualty count than use what they're actually fighting for, what they're actually dying for. So how is the war going, Mr. President?
And yesterday, my administration announced decisive action to help keep down the oil prices, including offering political risk insurance for tankers transiting into the Gulf, as you know, pretty dangerous territory. Further action to reduce pressure on oil is imminent, and the oil seems to have pretty much stabilized. We had it very low, but I had to take this little detour if it's okay with everybody. Scott, it's okay with you? Scott's the one who has to put up with it. He said, you have to do this now? I said, I have to do it, Scott, right?
That's what affects you the most, the gas prices, right? And I know a lot of you are worried about the gas prices going up. Do you know why we sank the Iranian Navy? Because they want to blockade the Strait. They want to blockade the Strait of Hormuz. And if they blockaded the Strait, that would have meant the rest of the world needed the oil to get through there. It's not getting through there, so they would have had to turn to the United States. And do we have enough production to do it? We took out their navies, so they couldn't do it. It stabilized gas prices, stopped them from skyrocketing. And yet, the local media is like, look at the gas prices. They're so high. They're high because of the Climate Commitment Act. They're high because refineries are shutting down in California. They're not high because of the war in Iran. I think they went up 2 cents because of the war in Iran. Meanwhile, they went up $1.40 because of the Democrats' insanity. Didn't hear you guys say anything about it. So how's the actual war going? Well, apparently it's so bad that the Iranians are begging to surrender. That's what President Trump said earlier today. I wonder how many of them are left. I wonder if any of them are actually around. I got to tell you guys, at this point, the war is over. It's just a matter of cleaning up the mess. And it's going to take a little while. It takes a while to get rid of these terrorists who are in a death cult, who think that dying is the highest form of worship to Allah. It's going to take a while. And the other thing I'm concerned about is the Islamists playing the long game. They go, okay, we won't get him this year, but we can wait out President Trump, and maybe there's a Democrat in here next who will give us billions of dollars to rebuild everything. That's my biggest concern. You say, what's next? If this doesn't get solved in the next 3 years, I worry about what happens if a Democrat wins in 2028. Do you share those concerns? Because that is something I am very, very, very concerned about, that all this may have been for nothing. Now, the question is, can you make sure a Democrat doesn't get into office? And when we come back, my friends, what we'll be discussing is the voter integrity, the SAVE Act. Is it any closer to moving forward? Would you risk the filibuster? We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, if you want to win 2 advanced screening tickets to see Universal Pictures' Reminders of Him, the highly anticipated film adaptation from best-selling author Colleen Hoover, head on over to kvi.com right now and go over to our contest page. There, you enter your information, and that is where you get your chance to win. The screening is going to be on March 10th at 6:15. Make sure you head on over there right now for your chance to win at kvi.com and go over to the contest page. That's where you go. A lot of you have a lot of reaction to the previous segment here. This one here from Becky and Enumclaw. I love Caroline Levitt. She is one sharp girl. This one from the 360. I love the butt whooping that the CNN reporter Caitlin Collins got from the White House spokeswoman. Exactly. This one from Robin Lakewood. Gas prices. Too bad Biden drained the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to get reelected. How'd that work out for him? I don't think he even ran for reelection. I mean, seriously, guys, this kind of stuff. I think the majority of Americans know the Ayatollah was a bad guy. I think the majority of Americans know that. And I know a lot of you, anytime I bring up, hey, the majority of Americans know this, you always go, well, we're never going to win unless we get election integrity. Okay, well, what are we doing about that? According to the Post-Millennial, President Donald Trump has demanded that Republican lawmakers in the Senate get the SAVE Act passed, a law that would nationalize voter ID requirements. By the way, this is something that's mind-boggling to me. If you want to participate in a federal election, shouldn't all the requirements be standard anyway? That should be a pretty basic thing. You want to vote however you want to vote for your county or your mayor or whatever, it is fine. But if it's a federal election and we're all part of one country, why do we do this differently? It's goofy. Trump posted a Truth Social. The Republicans must do with passion, at the expense of everything else, the SAVE Act, and not watered-down version. This is a country-defining fight for the soul of our nation. Okay, so what he's clearly talking about there is the filibuster. And I come back to this question again. Would you sacrifice the filibuster so that you could pass the SAVE Act? Now, I did like, was our friend Matt, I think he said the last time I brought this up, he says, no, do whatever you got to do. Sacrifice the filibuster. Then when you have the majority, codify the filibuster for the next vote. Then you're good to go. I think that was a very clever solution. He added in a follow-up post summarizing points of the SAVE Act, saying that all voters must show ID as well as show proof of citizenship in order to vote. No mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel, he added in the post. In addition to this, he slammed Democrats on the transgender issue, saying there shouldn't be men in women's sports, no transgender mutilation surgery for children, without the express written approval of the parents. Trump, as well as a number of Republicans, have been pushing to get the SAVE Act passed in the House. It is already clear to vote, to the Senate. It is already clear to vote in the House, but is facing opposition from a few Senate Republicans, including Lisa Murkowski of Alaska. Others, such as Utah Senator John Curtis, as well as Tom Tillis, have indicated that they would not vote in favor of forcing a talking filibuster in order to get the SAVE Act passed. Mitch McConnell also is unclear about the SAVE Act. I wonder if Mitch McConnell's still alive. I really do. That man has looked better, shall we say. So I ask the question again. Do you think we should get rid of the filibuster? Do you think we should get rid of the filibuster to pass the SAVE Act? Or do you like that new idea that one of our callers gave us where you get rid of the filibuster, pass the SAVE Act, and then immediately codify the filibuster? Or you have to have the filibuster going forward? Is that what you think you should do? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Eben and Bonnie Lake added, Ari, I'm very concerned that a Democrat getting elected president in the next term. Imagine how things would look if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were in office right now. Everything I see tells me that Democrats are hell-bent on destroying this country. If they were in office right now, we'd still have hostages in Gaza. We still would. 1,000% we would, and the body count would be a lot higher. That's what would be going on if they were actually elected to office. I guarantee you that. I guarantee you Iran would still be working on a nuclear bomb. Who knows? They may have even used it by now, God forbid. Now, following Tuesday's primary election in Texas, which resulted in current Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and incumbent Senator John Cornyn moving forward to a runoff election, Paxton has said he won't drop out, regardless of whether or not he receives President Trump's endorsement. He told Just the News that it was a pretty unusual thing to take on an incumbent, not incompetent, an incumbent, and actually do well against them, adding that he can only think of 2 cases in the last 4 years. He says we're doing really well in the runoff. Just the News' John Solomon told Paxton, President Trump said he's going to make an endorsement. Whoever he does not endorse, should drop out. I have a funny feeling you won't drop out under any circumstances. Paxton replied, no, I'm staying in this race. I owe it to the people of Texas. I spent a year of my life campaigning against John Cornyn because John has not represented the people of Texas well. He said he sided with Joe Biden on the Second Amendment restrictions. He sided with Joe Biden on bringing Afghan refugees to settle here without vetting them. He's been against Trump in both of his elections. He said he shouldn't run last time. That day has passed, of course, and he fought him on the border wall. He's been an amnesty guy. Everything that Trump stood for, John Cornyn fought, adding that the people in Texas, at least the Republicans, would like something different. Trump posted on Truth Social the Republican primary race for the United States Senate of the great state of Texas, a state I love and won 3 times in record numbers, the highest vote ever recorded by far, cannot, for the good of the party and our country itself, be allowed to go on any longer. It must stop now. He says we have to beat the radical left opponent, and we have to totally focus on putting him away quickly and decisively. Both John and Ken ran great races, but not good enough. Now this one must be perfect. My endorsement within the Republican parties have been virtually insurmountable. It's such an honor to realize and say that almost everyone I endorse wins, and wins by a lot, especially in Texas. They win by the most. And every candidate that I don't endorse should immediately drop out of the race. Is that fair? We must win in November. Now, following this got even more crazy. So Paxton said he would drop out of the Texas Senate race if Cornyn votes to pass the SAVE Act. Oh, the drama behind all this is very, very exciting. Personally, I think the people of Texas should decide all this. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Pete in Florida. Pete, what's going on?
Hey, I'm just a little upset at all you conservatives talking stuff like blowing up the filibuster, killing the filibuster. No, it's called restoring regular order. You make the other side stand up and make their speeches, and for what? 2 speeches per day or per the session?
Well, hang on a second here, Pete. The filibuster is not just when you stand there talking for a while. The filibuster is you want this.
No, it is.
Hang on a second here, okay? That's part of it. The other thing is what they really want to be able to do is they want to say, well, if we pass anything with a 51 majority or a 52 majority or something like that, the Democrats are going to come in and do that and forego the 60 vote, which we're using, which isn't law right now, but that's what we've been going with it. So what I'll say here is that, Pete, think about this, and this is the fight that's going on, right? The fight that's going on right now is the Democrats can do the exact same thing when they get swept back in. And by the way, there's nothing to stop them. There's nothing to stop them whatsoever from doing that. So would you take the risk on that if they win the midterms?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, tell me why.
Because I don't think they're going to win the midterms because they're that crazy.
Well, I'll say I like your confidence, Pete. I like your confidence a lot. I'm looking at the polling numbers, and they ain't so great right now. Now, mind you, I haven't seen polling on the midterms since the bombing of Iran. And I actually think that's going to help President Trump. I'm not saying that's why he did it. I like your commitment. I really do. I like that you have commitment to this and you say full speed ahead. And part of me wants to go along with you. The other part of me, though, what I'm concerned about is that what happens if they do win? What happens if they win in 2028? And now the filibuster isn't even a thing anymore. Now, like I said, there's nothing to stop them from breaking the filibuster. Nothing at all. And if we're going to start codifying things, we should codify the filibuster and not have to worry about it down the road. Pete, do appreciate you being part of the show. Do appreciate you calling in all the way from Florida. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Now, mind you, if we can codify things, the question is, can we codify spending? Can we codify the Doge rescissions? Can we get rid of all this waste, fraud, and abuse? And up next, there's a whole bunch of waste, fraud, and abuse coming your way. What do I mean? There's a new House bill we didn't even know was going forward, which could force homeless encampments, homeless hotels, homeless shelters on your neighborhood. And when we come back, we're going to analyze this absolute insanity about how bad it could be that your neighborhood would be forced to have a homeless encampment, a homeless shelter, anything, without any knowledge of you, the people. Tell you about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. As if we didn't have enough problems with the Washington State Legislature, they now have House Bill 2266, which would force communities to accept permanent supportive housing units. That means, you know how sometimes we find out that they bought a hotel in some unsuspecting community and just decide to start a homeless shelter there? That means they're going to force you to accept it. So any protests you have are not going to work, not going to do anything, not going to discourage anybody. Joining us now to discuss on the Warrior Injury Law studio line is Marcia Michaelis, who is the project coordinator and research fellow for the Discovery Institute. Thanks so much for being with us today.
A pleasure, Ari. Glad to come and talk about it.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. Tell us about this video you've done to expose all this.
Yeah, so Discovery Institute has been working hard to help people understand what things are not going to work to solve homelessness and which kinds of solutions will work. And so we put out a video talking about House Bill 2266, which is sadly in the not going to work category. And we just wanted to inform communities that this will actually harm the people who are meant to be helped, and it will harm the communities who these housing facilities, would come to their backyard. So that is the big problem with this bill.
It also seems to me that there is no requirement for treatment. There's no requirement for rehab. There's no requirement for felony checks. There's no requirement for any of these. And we saw in Renton is the example I can think of best, where they rented out that Red Lion Hotel, and they ended up having to kick out the homeless people because they destroyed the hotel. Crime went up through the roof at that Red Lion. They even pulled the Red Lion logo off it. Things got so bad. So this is the norm. This isn't a bug. It's a feature of the system, right?
Yeah, that's exactly the problem. So these are run as, quote unquote, no barrier or low barrier. And we're meant to think of that as compassionate, meaning we're going to help anybody, anytime. The problem is predators flow in with the people who need help. So these facilities become crime-ridden drug dens where dealers and other predators are making prey of weak people who we're expecting to opt in to the very difficult daily work of trying to overcome addiction, of trying to, get through mental illness that has not been treated. A lot of them have suffered terrible trauma. So these are folks who need intervention. They need, accountability from people who care about them and know their names and aren't going to take no for an answer. And instead, they're all just sort of warehoused into a building where, services are provided on an optional basis, and a lot of money is made because the buildings are filled with people.
And as we found out from friends like Andrea Suarez from We Heart Seattle, there are people who have these units and also have an RV or a tent and also have something else. I mean, there are a lot of people gaming the system. Right now, it doesn't seem like there's any accountability for this whatsoever.
Right. And honestly, I think that's something we should look at and say, you know what? Homeless people are smart, just like everybody else. They make decisions that benefit themselves daily. They make decisions based on conditions. And so when we say, hey, we've got something free for you with no conditions, no requirements that you show up, that you do the hard thing, that you recover, it's not good for people. Even those who want to change are going to find it really difficult to change in that environment. And I think, I'm in that category. I need conditions daily to make good decisions, and same with everybody else. So I don't know why we assume that just because someone is homeless, they don't make decisions that move them in a direction every day, and we can help with better direction.
We're talking with Marcia Michaelis, who's the project coordinator and research fellow for the Discovery Institute with their Project Fix Homelessness. So if you had a blank canvas and you had an unlimited budget, how would you address the situation?
There are people doing a great job already in Washington State. Union Gospel Mission, Bread of Life Mission in Seattle, Andrea Suarez, We Heart Seattle, Ginny Burton, who's got her OUT program where she works in prisons to help people when they've been separated from their drugs and their bad social networks, and she's there to help them so they come out with a better, hopeful future. There's Ascenda over in Spokane run by Lisa Sittler, who is like a mother to the families who live there, who are working hard to stay clean and sober, to have a stable life, to raise their children well. There are programs working all over our state, all over our country, and that's who we should be supporting.
So that leads me to an interesting point just before we let you go, which is if they're doing a good job, and we know that there were only X amount of homeless people beforehand, people who lost their jobs, people who had mental health, people who had drug addiction, people who had this, and now we have this massive ballooning of the number. Do you think these numbers are inaccurate, and maybe they're actually helping people? And everybody else who's in the system of Homeless Inc. is just gaining the system. And in the process, the government officials and these agencies are just getting our taxpayer dollars, not actually spending it on this, spending it on whatever else.
You know, it's a fair question because there is a lot of fraud and waste and abuse that has been uncovered. And as you know, nationwide, there have been programs that are being exposed because they are easy money for a lot of people. So that is a huge issue. But also, I think it is a huge issue that we ignore the realities of human nature. And so we are actually making it harder for people to overcome the conditions that lead to their homelessness. And that's awful. We are profiting off of people's pain when, CEOs of nonprofits are taking home lavish salaries and the people in their facilities are dying in despair, entrapped in addiction. And we can talk all day about what people are responsible for and their own choices. And that's all true, but it's true of you and me as much as anybody else. And we need undeserved mercy. We need investment in our lives by people who care. And so those are the programs that work. And that's what we need more of. And it's hard to buy that with other people's money. We just have to acknowledge that. But certainly the money that we are investing, we should be investing well, not just trying and throwing it out there and feeling good about what we're doing. We should actually be doing programs that work for human beings to have better lives.
The video from our friends over at Fix Homelessness from the Discovery Institute can be found over on all their social media channels and their website. I'll make sure to share it on mine as well. Marsha Michaelis, project coordinator and research fellow for the Discovery Institute, who put this whole thing together. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your insights. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Ari.
Always a pleasure. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news headlines put a smile on your face. Heading into your evening commute, you're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Only good news to wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And I'll start with the good news is I can still see the sun a little bit, which means daylight savings time is starting. That's the one? No, ending. Right. We're getting to the end of that this weekend. We did that legislation yesterday. Spring forward, fall back. Yeah, but that doesn't help me remember which time thing we're on. Anyway, just one last chance to remind everybody that you can win 2 advanced screening tickets to see Universal Pictures' Reminders of Him, the highly anticipated film adaptation from best-selling author Colleen Hoover, which is going to be March 10th at 6:15. Now, all you have to do to win your chance is go to kvi.com, head on over to the contest page, and fill out your information there. Best of luck to you. Your last chance to win these particular prizes will be coming up tomorrow during the show. Okay, this story here, young Zach found for me, and he said I have to run this by Mr. KVI. He said, Mr. KVI will probably have a lot to say about this particular story. Oh, no, you're going to like this one.
Oh, no.
So, when you go to the movie theater these days, they usually have the soda machines, which are, you can mix and match anything you want. Now, the root beer, if somebody had root beer before me, there's always a little root beer in whatever I'm having. I don't like that.
I believe Coca-Cola calls those freestyle machines.
Freestyle machines. Okay. Well, apparently, Heinz Ketchup has decided we should have these for sauces. Any sauce you want, you can make at a freestyle machine, and there is one at the Muckleshoot Casino right here in our very own Washington. They have Washington's first Heinz Remix sauce machine. It allows you to create up to over 2,000 custom combinations of sauces. Do you have a particular favorite you might enjoy from that?
He's setting this up for me because I hate condiments.
So I have I want to know how bad this is.
I only like a few sauces.
Okay, so I want to know how bad this is. I have a friend that if he knows condiments were used in a dish, he won't eat the dish. Are we talking about that bad, or you just don't like them on your sandwich?
No, I mean, I just don't like them raw on a sandwich or on a hamburger or whatever. Sometimes if they're in, it doesn't bother me. But a potato salad or something like that is basically like mustard and mayo mixed, and then potatoes. I'm like, I don't want any of that nonsense. Plus, my problem with it too is they're all just empty calories.
Yeah.
Like if you have a sandwich and it's like, I don't know, it's 450 calories, whatever it is.
Yeah.
500, whatever. You throw on some condiments and it doubles it instantly for
that's why it's so good.
Good. No, thank you.
Okay.
And that machine's got to be a disaster, by the way. Like, you're talking about flavors bleeding through.
It's got to be pretty bad. I don't know how you clean that up. That's got to be pretty
It's got to be so gross.
My guess is this is one of those things that they go, nice idea. Like those electronic bathrooms that clean themselves, but you don't see any of those around Pioneer Square anymore, right? This thing's going bye-bye. Now, for me personally, and this is something my wife says to me all the time, the empty calories thing. She goes, you're having a salad. You're perfectly fine. Why are you covering it with Thousand Island dressing? I go, because it makes it better.
You put ranch on there, and it's like it goes through the roof.
Yes. But I don't want to just eat weeds. I want to have a little something more on my salad. I need a little meat in my salad.
I get it. And see, I like ranch. I don't mind ranch. I like blue cheese.
Yeah.
And that's just that's instant fat and calories added to it, but it tastes so good. I agree with you.
Yes. So me personally, and here's something else. A lot of my Jewish friends say, why do you put mayo on everything? And
I can't stand mayonnaise.
I love mayo, okay? But they say that's not a Jewish thing. I go, what does that have to do with anything? It's not in the book. God didn't talk to Moses on the mountain and say, thou shalt not eat mayonnaise and bacon. He didn't say that. I love my mayonnaise and everything. Barbecue sauce, mayo, honey mustard. Those are my top 3 favorites. So what do you do when you have an appetizer? It's like wings and they offer you a sauce, or it's like the chicken nuggets and they offer you a sauce. What do you go for?
Yeah, I like I said, I like some sauces. Like, okay. I love wing sauce.
Yes.
Pretty much any kind of wing sauce I love.
Mm-hmm.
Blue cheese, A1 sauce.
I love the A1. I love the A1 kind of stuff. That's good stuff.
It's mostly like mayonnaise. I just don't like just mayonnaise. It's disgusting to me. Ketchup's fine. It's just too sweet.
You put anything on your tuna? If you have the tuna or you don't have the tuna?
I don't monkey around with the tuna.
You don't do the tuna.
No,
It's not
I
your
don't do
jam.
that. I don't
Okay.
do that.
Yeah, I have limited options around here, so tuna is kind of what I'm stuck with.
I love barbecue sauce.
Yes.
I love barbecue.
Love barbecue sauce. Barbecue sauce is good, and I really discovered that basically anything is better with barbecue sauce, and that has been really bad for my waistline.
And I'm a tangy barbecue sauce guy. I don't want the super incredibly sweet. I like to cut with like tang. To it as well.
I like that. That sounds very, very good. Yeah. See, what I do with barbecue sauce and steaks, maybe this is where you guys think it is. I don't put the barbecue sauce, I don't have the steaks with the barbecue sauce. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing the ketchup thing.
Basting it while you're cooking it?
That's different.
Okay.
See, I will use it for that. Or when I'm actually smoking something, I know the text line's about to blow up at this. To keep it moist while I'm doing it, I put some barbecue sauce in there. I like the flavor, and it keeps it moist. It does a whole bunch of things at one time. It's great. It's really great. That's how I do these things. I know some people are like, what's wrong with you, Hoffman? My kids like it.
Well, you sound like we should get you a show on the Cooking Network.
I don't think so. I don't think anybody would eat this stuff. Sometimes when my wife is like, well, if you enjoy it, that's all that matters, if you're going to be the one eating it. So, anyway, the Muckleshoot Casino has this Heinz Mix and Match sauce machine, the Remix machine, if you want to go check it out. If you do, I want videos. I want to see what condition it's in before you start monkeying around with the sauce, and I want you to tell me if it's actually good or not.
This is exactly why they're doing this, right? They want the viral coverage and things like that. But you're right; it's not going to last very long. It's kind of more of a joke thing. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like a new kind of slot machine at the Muckleshoot Casino. In fact, I think it's time to reach out to our friends at the Muckleshoot Casino and say, hey, you want to send a radio host to the Muckleshoot Casino for a night? I haven't been there in a while. Last time it was on a promotion, I think it was. I am more than happy to go there and try your sauce machine. And since most of them are kosher, I think I'll actually be fine. What to put it on, I got to figure out what I'm bringing with me because I don't think I can eat anything at the Muckleshoot Casino. But yeah, if you want to see this sauce machine, apparently the first one in Washington, go check it out at the Muckleshoot Casino. And if you do, I want to hear all about it. We have questions. We have lots of questions about the sauce machine. So make sure you be in touch with us about the sauce machine. That's going to do it for us today, my friends. But fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and more good news about sauce machines. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.